I still remember the sound. It wasn't loud, not even close. It was just a whisper. A soft, rhythmic whisper that echoed from the metal lockers every night after everyone had gone home. My name's Daniel, and I used to work as a part-time janitor at a small-town high school, Ridgewood High. It wasn't anything special, the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happened. Or at least, that's what I thought. Every evening, after the last bell rang and the halls went silent, I'd start my shift. I liked the quiet, the way the lights buzzed overhead and the faint smell of old books and cleaning chemicals. It made me feel like I was the only person left in the world. But then came the whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind. There was a long row of old lockers near the back hallway, the kind that creaked when you opened them. One night, as I passed by, I heard it. A soft hiss, like someone whispering a secret just behind the metal. I froze. The sound was faint, so faint that I thought maybe I was imagining it. But when I turned around, the hallway was empty. Every locker was closed. I laughed it off, told myself it was fatigue, maybe even a trick of air moving through the vents. But the next night, it came again. Same voice, same word, my name. This time I stepped closer. The whisper seemed to move, sliding from one locker to another, down the row, like something crawling through the metal. And when I placed my ear against one, it stopped. It completely. That silence was worse than the sound itself. For the next week, I tried to ignore it, but every night, same time, around 9:17 p.m., it would start. Sometimes it whispered my name, sometimes just breathed. And every time, it came from the same set of lockers. So one night I decided to open them, row by row, nothing, just textbooks, old gym shoes, a few forgotten notes, until I got to locker the first 312. The door wouldn't open. It was jammed shut, like something heavy was pressing against it from the inside. I yanked harder, and a piece of paper slid out from the crack. It was a torn page from an old yearbook, and on it, a photo, a smiling boy. Underneath, written in faded pen, Daniel Morris, 1997. My heart sank. That was my name. Same first and last. I stared at the picture. The boy looked exactly like me, only younger. Same brown eyes, same crooked smile. I dropped the paper and stepped back. The whisper started again, but this time, it wasn't calling my name. It was laughing. I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my things. I just ran out of that building, into the cold night air, and never went back. The next morning, the school called. They said someone had broken into the building, that they found one locker open and the inside completely burned black. Locker 312. They asked if I'd seen anything strange. I told them no, but sometimes when I drive past Ridgewood High at night, I still hear it. A faint whisper following the hum of the streetlights. It was supposed to be a quiet evening study session. The university library had closed early for maintenance, so I went looking for a quiet spot elsewhere. One of the janitors, an older man with a faded name tag that read Earl, told me about an unused classroom in the old science building's basement.
Nobody goes down there anymore, but it's quiet.
That was all I needed to hear. The building itself was one of the oldest on campus. The kind with dusty hallways, peeling paint, and a constant hum in the pipes that made you feel like the walls were breathing. When I pushed open the basement door, it gave a long, tired creak, like it hadn't been opened in years. The air was different down there. Cold, almost damp, carrying the faint metallic scent of rust or blood. My phone signal dropped instantly, but I told myself it was just bad reception. I found the classroom, room B13. The number was scratched out, replaced by deep gouges in the paint. Inside, it was pitch black, until I turned on the single overhead light, which flickered to life in a weak yellow glow. There were still chairs and desks, though half of them were broken or stacked against the walls. In the corner stood an old chalkboard covered in faded writing. When I got closer, I realized it wasn't writing. It was names. Hundreds of them, layered on top of one another, written in white chalk. Some were half erased. Some still fresh. I didn't think much of it at first. I set my laptop down, plugged in my earbuds, and tried to focus on my essay. But 10 minutes later, I heard something. A scrape. Like the sound of a chair being pulled slowly across the floor behind me. I froze. The light buzzed above me, flickering once. When I turned around, nothing had moved, except one of the desks that had been pushed against the wall was now slightly turned, facing me. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe I'd nudged it earlier. Maybe it was just uneven flooring. But then, chalk rolled across the floor. I swear it came from the chalkboard. I hadn't touched it. The small white stick spun twice and stopped at my shoe. When I looked up, there was a new name written on the board. My name. I felt every hair on my body stand up. My pulse pounded so hard it drowned out the silence. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave. But when I reached for the door, it wouldn't open. The knob twisted uselessly, as if something on the other side was holding it still. That's when the lights went out. For a few seconds, all I heard was my own breathing, until the scraping sound came again. Louder. Closer. The kind of sound that didn't belong to furniture anymore, but to something moving. I used my phone flashlight, but the screen flickered like the bulb above me. The beam shook as my hands trembled. The chalkboard was now covered in writing, every inch of it. The names were blending together, overlapping, filling the board like veins. Then one line stood out from the mess, written in fresh white chalk. You shouldn't have come back. My phone slipped from my hand. The flashlight landed face up, throwing light onto the corner of the room towards where something stood. At first I thought it was a person, but it wasn't moving right. Its shoulders were too broad, its neck too long, its head tilted as if studying me. The outline was human, but wrong. It stepped forward, silent, but every footfall vibrated in my chest. I couldn't scream. I couldn't think. I could only stare as it raised one arm and pointed. Not at me, but at the chalkboard. My name had been erased. And below it, written shakily in the same white chalk. Next class begins now. The door behind me burst open with a sound like thunder. I didn't stop to question it. I ran, up the stairs, through the halls, out into the night. When I reached the campus quad, I turned around. The basement windows were glowing faintly yellow. And for just a second, I saw silhouettes sitting at desks, one by one, all facing forward. I went to a small private high school, the kind that looked more like an old hospital than a place for kids. The hallways were long, gray, and lined with flickering fluorescent lights that hummed above you like insects. Every night the janitors would clean after hours, and one security guard, a man named Mr. Lorne, patrolled the halls. Everyone knew him. Tall, quiet, wore the same faded blue uniform every day, and never smiled. He had this way of staring too long when he spoke to you, like he was memorizing your face. During the day, he was just the guy who checked IDs and told kids to stop running. But at night, people whispered stories. How sometimes, when students stayed late for detention or after school clubs, they'd hear his keys jangling behind them, even after he'd gone home. I never believed any of it, until I got detention on a Friday. It was already dark by the time I finished my punishment, cleaning desks in room 204. When I stepped into the hallway, the school was empty. Silent, except for the low buzz of the lights. My phone had 3% battery. I texted my mom that I was on my way. Then I heard it. Click, jangle, step. The sound of keys brushing against fabric. At first, I thought it was the janitor. But when I turned, the hallway was empty. The sound came again, this time from the other end of the corridor. I saw the beam of a flashlight sweep across the floor. A deep voice called out, steady but cold.
Students aren't allowed here after 7.
It was Mr. Lorne. I relaxed a little. Sorry, sir, I said, forcing a laugh. I was just leaving. But he didn't respond. He just stood there, half-shadowed, the flashlight pointed at my chest.
You know the rules. Hallways are closed. Return to your classroom.
I just finished detention. I started, but he cut me off.
Return to your classroom.
His tone wasn't angry. It was empty, flat, like he was repeating something memorized. I hesitated, then glanced behind me. Every door was locked, even the one I'd just come from. When I turned back, he was closer, not walking, just there. The light hit his face, pale, expressionless, eyes like wet glass. His mouth twitched once, like a glitch in a screen. Then he smiled. It wasn't a human smile. It looked like he was trying to remember how.
We keep the halls clean at night. No one should make a mess.
I ran. The sound of his boots echoed behind me, slow, rhythmic, unhurried. I darted into the stairwell and shoved the door closed. The metal rattled once, then stopped. For a few seconds, silence, then click, jangle, step. He was still on the other side. My phone buzzed, 1% battery. A text popped up from a number I didn't recognize. Stay where you are, don't move. I froze. Another message came in. He can see movement. My heart was hammering. The stairwell was too quiet. I looked up and saw a camera in the corner. The small red light flickered on. Another text. He's looking through them now. I covered my mouth, backing against the wall. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice crackled from the intercom, the one that had been dead all week.
Student in stairwell. Come back to class.
The voice was his, but distorted. Too slow, too deep. The lights in the stairwell dimmed one by one from top to bottom. The last bulb above me flickered, then burst with a pop. Everything went black. I bolted up the stairs, following the faint light from an exit sign. My hand hit the door at the top, locked. I slammed it again and again until it finally gave way. I stumbled out into the main hallway, but it wasn't the same. The floor was wet, smeared with long black streaks, and the walls had names scrawled in red marker, just like detention rosters. Every name had a date beside it, all in the past, except one, freshly written at the bottom. My name, present. I turned around. The hallway behind me was filled with silhouettes, rows of students standing perfectly still, heads slightly bowed. And at the far end, under the flickering light, stood Mr. Lorne.
Back to class. Roll call isn't over. The lights cut out completely. All that remained was the jingle of keys and the slow creak of classroom doors opening one by one.
If you've ever stayed late at your school or college, maybe you felt that strange silence too, the kind that doesn't feel empty, but watched. Because sometimes when the halls go quiet, they're not really empty at all. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who thinks school is the safest place on earth. Until next time, keep your lights on.